It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Men on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. Get yourself a copy. Go up to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. That's it. That's what the show is being brought to you by. All right. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. First and foremost, I want to get into some of the fights that took place last weekend. Let me just say this past weekend. In the heavyweight division, there was a fight on ESPN Plus with F.A. Ajagba took on Joe Goodall. First and foremost, first of all, I want to say give a shout out to everybody in the chat room. I'm going to say a collective good evening to everybody because obviously it's hard for me to talk and do the show and type and do all those things. I'm an old man, but anyway, we talked about it last week about how every promoter is kind of aligned with a different network or streaming service. Well, this past weekend was a good example of it because on ESPN Plus, we had a heavyweight fight that was pretty, I was looking forward to it, wasn't that competitive. F.A. Ajagba scored a fourth round stoppage over Joe Goodall to improve to 19-1 with 14 of his wins coming by knockout. Took place in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. They had a pretty good crowd there. Joe Goodall, a fighter who fought Ajagba in the amateurs, but by no stretch of the biggest imagination is in the same class of Ajagba. But, with that said, this is a guy that everybody's saying, oh, he's there. He's not there. My notes on him was, every time he threw his right hand, he dropped his left. And I mean, it was almost like they were connected. And the way he's delivering his right hand, he's wide open for a counterpunch, most likely like a looping punch or an overhand right. Any of the top heavyweights that we talked about will expose this. His footwork is piss poor. I mean, he was stumbling over his own feet. He reminded me of Deontay Wilder, to be honest with you. Terrible footwork. And his defense was bad. Even when his hands were up, there were some times when he kept his hands up. But those were the times he got hit. Those were the times Goodall was able to get through his defense and hit him. Despite all of this, I do think he has a really good jab, and his uppercut is pretty sneaky. At least it looked sneaky against Goodall. I think he's still a work in progress. And this goes back to what I was saying last week and what I've been saying for years is the fact that, they're coddled so much that their level of opposition that they face never gets that much better. So how are you going to get better? It's the same analogy. If the worst football team played the best football team week in and week out and beat their butts every single week, are they that good? I don't know. I don't know. The other thing I noticed about the broadcast was the broadcast team. All right. Bernardo Osuna, Osuna, I know he knows this stuff, but, when he, okay, I'll give you an example, right? If I was going to say a name, let's just say, Juan Saul Antonio Cesar Lopez Rodriguez. If I was going to say Juan Saul Antonio Cesar Lopez Rodriguez, because that's a long name, right? That's the way I would say it, just like that. I would just say Juan Saul Antonio Cesar Lopez Rodriguez, right? Not Bernardo. Bernardo would say Juan Saul Antonio Cesar Lopez Rodriguez. It's like, come on, man. Come on. I mean, is that really called for? I mean, every time, and he just never stops. And Mark Kriegel, please, and Timothy Bradley is the only guy that I can stand. I mean, who doesn't like Timothy Bradley? But he really showed that he's a company man when he said that he made a comment about a Jogba, and he says, he's going to make some noise in the heavyweight. He's right up there with the heavyweights. I don't know exactly. I can't recall exactly what he said, but it was ridiculous. Like, he said he's the real deal in the heavyweight division. I mean, I, you know, I, you know, if we had a bunch of heavyweights like a Jabba and they were all fighting each other, man, would we have a good heavyweight division? But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. But anyway, that was a fight on ESPN Plus. If you're a fan of Top Rank, now if you're a fan of Eddie Hearn and his promotional team, then you were watching DAZN, right? And IBF Super Featherweight champion Joe Cordina improved to 17-0 with 9 knockouts when he's fought a hard 12-round majority decision over Edward Vasquez, who drops to 15-2 with 3 knockouts at the Casino di Monte Carlo in Monte Carlo. I thought it was a great fight, to be honest with you. It was tough and gritty. The scores were 114-114, and 2 judges had it 116-112. I loved it. It was action. I personally thought it was a draw too. I scored that fight 114-114. I didn't think it was justified that Vasquez really complained using the word robbery and everything else. I don't think that the fight was by any means a robbery, but I do believe it was honestly a draw. And I think that I don't know. I'd like to see it again, but I would think Cordina, who said after the fight he's looking for big money fights right now, I don't think he would want any part of Vasquez. And then the other fight on that card was pretty much a guy that was given, including myself, gave him no chance. Adrian Carell, he knocked out and won the IBF World Junior Flyweight title from Civ. And again, I apologize now, but not Shinga, who drops to 12-1, second round, 1 minute and 9 seconds of the second round. I have a comment about the British commentary on that fight, at least what I watched. I really love the Brits and I love the UK, and I really, honestly, I've been saying this for years. I think this show would be great in England because I love the fan base and just boxing in general in England. But I don't know if any of you people out there are as old as me and can remember, but the commentary reminded me of the great Scottish race car driver Jimmy Stewart when he was calling the races. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I mean, this was a guy that would make a car going into a turn sound like it was the greatest thing ever. And one of the commentators sounded just like him. If I had my eyes closed and somebody said, "Who's this?" I would have said Jimmy Stewart. I mean, easily. But anyway, some other fights that took place this past weekend on a pay-per-view. Now again, this is how the fight game goes now, right? You either got to buy a streaming service based on the promoter you like, or you're going to pay to watch a fight. The sport of boxing fleeces their fans more than any other sport. But Don King, that Don King, the same guy, he put on a decent card. The vacant WBC cruiserweight title was on the line. Noel Michelin stopped former champion, which kind of surprised me, Junior Macaboo, in that fight. It was waved off at 1 minute in what round was it? Third round. It was waved off after the beating he was taken. On the undercard, a couple of heavyweights trying to make a name for themselves. Jonathan Guidry improved to 20-1 with 2 draws, with 12 of his wins coming by knockout. Beat and stopped Jesus Escalara in the second round. Escalara dropped to 19-1, losing for the first time. A right hand put him down at 2 minutes. Escalara, 43 years old, though. Just saying. Cassius Chaney improved to 23-1 with 16 knockouts when he knocked out. And it's funny that they actually say this, okay? This is how bad it's become for the WBA. But former WBA regular heavyweight champion, Trevor Bryan, a guy who hates to train, my man Dax Khan, who was part of the show, and hopefully we'll get him on moving forward too, knew him as an amateur, worked with him as an amateur, and called it from day one how the kid hated to train. He did pick up that trinket and then lost it, and he got beat again in that fight. Just to name a couple of fights that took place this past weekend. All right, let's get an update. Tyson Fury against Francis Ngannou. The rematch. It's coming, but I wonder when. Listen, I've heard some rumors coming out of the Tyson Fury camp. Now, some of the rumors that I had heard was that Fury was going to fight Ngannou in a cage match under special modified MMA rules, which I think would be a total mistake. And, Eddie Hearn chimed in about that as well. So don't count on that happening. I know a lot of MMA fans out there think that, since Ngannou stepped in the ring with Tyson Fury as a boxer, now Tyson Fury will step in the cage with Ngannou. That will never happen. And if it did, Ngannou would absolutely destroy Tyson Fury. I just think that, when you look at a guy like Ngannou and, the physical shape and condition that he's in, which, is conducive to the MMA. And then you look at Tyson Fury, who isn't in that good a shape in terms of chiseled body and fluid motion and stuff like that. Now, what Tyson Fury does is he's a boxer. He can jab. He's got great defense. He's found some pop in his punches over his last several fights. So when that rematch happens, it's going to be in the squared circle. Now, some rumors out of the camp is that out of Tyson Fury's camp, and you heard it from his co-promoters, Warren and also Bob Arum, saying, "Oh, well, I don't know why so many people are giving him a hard time about canceling the Usyk fight. He was in a harder than expected fight. He needs time to heal and blah blah blah." Which we all knew that was going to happen. I mean, anybody that watched that fight knew that the fight against Usyk was not going to take place December 23rd. Like we talked about last week, it's tentatively scheduled for early February 2024. I think last week I said 23rd, but I meant it's not that I didn't. I said that I thought it was taking place February 23rd, but that's wrong. They did not give a date. They said they're shooting for February of 2024 for the Usyk fight. Usyk is in panic mode because he watched Tyson Fury not look that good against Ngannou. He knows how much the fans want to see the rematch, and at the end of the day, we all know that boxing is about the do re mi. So does as much as all of us true boxing fans want to see Usyk Tyson Fury so that we could have a unified champion. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyson Fury and Ngannou step in the ring again, because it'll bring huge dollars and the pay-per-views would be through the roof. I haven't heard any actual numbers released. I've heard as low as 10,000 and as high as 50,000. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But the biggest rumor coming out of the Tyson Fury camp is that he's having a hard time with the way this fight went mentally. Now, we all know that Tyson Fury has had some little bit of mental problems in the past. And he's having a hard time with it. He's having a hard time with the negativity that's been floating around. And he's saying to the people closest around him that he just simply can't concentrate on training for Usyk. That's a problem. I mean, he says all that's on his mind. I was told that he's saying that's all that's on his mind is to have a rematch with Ngannou, that he wants to set the record straight, that he wants to perform the way he thought that he was going to be able to perform. He admits he underestimated Ngannou. Top Rank has reinforced the statement that the rematch, the fight for Usyk is on, that the rematch would take place after that. But again, Tyson Fury, having a hard time getting past Ngannou. Listen, in my humble opinion, Tyson Fury needs to suck it up, man. He needs to move forward. He needs to concentrate on Usyk 110% and fight Usyk in February. He needs the best. He has to be the best he can be against Usyk, and end the story. As far as Ngannou, look, there's some big names out there that Ngannou could make some big money, and it will not affect the rematch with Tyson Fury. Even if Ngannou loses, he could fight Wilder or Anthony Joshua or Ruiz Jr. All of those guys are looking to fight him. And a Jagba, a safe fight for Ngannou might be F.A. Ajagba or even Frank Sanchez. Look, if Tyson Fury lost to Usyk, okay, he still gets to fight with Ngannou. Look, the Ngannou Tyson Fury rematch is going to happen at some point. It's going to happen. And whether it happens sooner or later, it's going to generate a lot of money only because of the way it went the first time. Tyson Fury's in a good position right now as far as that fight and making, generational changing dollars. If Tyson Fury cares about his legacy, which, right now is a pretty damn good one, he sucks it up and concentrates on Usyk and fights and beats Usyk. And again, like I said last week, if I'm Tyson Fury and I beat Usyk and I unify the titles, I don't need to fight Ngannou. On the record books, it's a win. And if I'm Tyson Fury, I walk away right then. There's nothing left for him to prove. And especially if he beats Usyk and he beats him convincingly, stops him or something like that, or beats the hell out of him for 12 rounds, which I honestly don't see happening. But I do see him possibly beating Usyk. It's it. It's over. That's what people are going to remember, right? So, and speaking of the heavyweights, I do believe that Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua is the fight that could generate a lot of money, and it could potentially end the loser's career and catapult the winner to another shot at the winner of Usyk Fury. So I do believe that fight should happen. Now Wilder. Now anybody that's ever watched this show knows I'm not a big fan of Deontay Wilder. And he was quoted as saying, actually, I saw this today, that everybody's saying that Fury lost and boxing needs Deontay Wilder back. Now, when he says everybody, maybe he means everybody with the name Deontay Wilder because, truthfully, how many more times does Tyson Fury have to beat the shit out of Deontay Wilder? I mean, look, they fought 3 times, right? On the record books, it was a draw and 2 wins for Tyson Fury. In Billy C's record book, he won all 3 times. Okay, he basically beat the living shit out of Deontay Wilder twice, and the third time was a little closer. And the only reason why Wilder got that draw was because Tyson Fury got up from that bomb that put him down. That most people watching that fight thought he was killed, But again, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua is a good fight. Even Wilder Ngannou, see that fight kind of interests me. Ngannou against Deontay Wilder, and I tell you the truth. I, I gotta lean towards Ngannou in that fight, and the look, Tyson Fury does not hit as hard as Deontay Wilder. Okay, he doesn't. Let's be real. I mean, I'm not a fan of Wilder at all, but the guy has freakish power. But that's all he has. He's got no footwork. I saw him throw a few jabs in one of his fights, I think, but he's just awkward, and he's got a good chance because his punches come from all these crazy, effed up angles that he's got a good chance of laying a power shot on Ngannou. Now, the question is, can Ngannou take that shot? Ngannou's never been down in any combat sports match ever. And could he take a shot from Deontay Wilder? I know damn well that if Ngannou connected with Deontay Wilder would wake up and he would wonder where he is because Ngannou has a hell of a lot more power than Tyson Fury, and we all saw what Tyson Fury did. And nothing for nothing, but if you remember back when Steve USS Cunningham fought Tyson Fury, he rocked the hell out of him with uppercuts. And Ngannou has a pretty sneaky uppercut himself, and I believe that that could get in to Wilder. Wilder, the way he delivers punches, sometimes a smart fighter. Like I always imagine if Mike Tyson in his prime fought Deontay Wilder and how quickly he would knock out Deontay Wilder because he would be able to get in under those shots. And because Wilder, has no footwork and no boxing skill aside from his power punch, Tyson would destroy him. And I have a feeling Ngannou could do the same. I would like to see that fight. But we'll see what happens. And by the way, when I saw this today, it kind of shocked me. Do you realize that Deontay Wilder hasn't fought since October of last year when he fought Robert Helinas? For a guy that talks as much crap as Wilder, he's certainly. I mean, I get it. He's at that point in his career where he's only looking for these big fights, and he himself said that he wants to talk to Anthony Joshua because let's face it, the Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder fight is big. It's good for the sport of boxing, and it's big for both of those guys. Now, if you remember, they had a falling out during negotiations when they were going to fight a couple of years ago, and both pointing the fingers at each other. And Anthony Joshua vowed to never give him the opportunity to fight. Now, you wonder, is he not giving him the opportunity because Anthony Joshua himself, who I used to be a big fan of, has demonstrated that he takes some shots and he too has a glass jaw similar to Deontay. But he said the reasons he's not going to give Deontay Wilder a fight is the financial reasons about the money that these two guys could make. I mean, there was rumors at the time when they were both at the top of the game, they could have walked away with $80 million each. And I don't know if they could generate that kind of money now, but they could certainly generate the interest. That's for sure. One other fighter that you got to sprinkle into the mix here Although, I look at him as a contender. He does have one of those regular belts, and that's Zhilei Zhang. He's looking for a big money fight. I mean, this poor guy, he's paid his dues. He's in his 40s. He won his last fight, and I think that and he won the fight before too. Incidentally, they were against the same guy, Joe Joyce, and he's in line for a big fight. As a matter of fact, he's the mandatory WBO challenger for Usyk's belt because he's got the WBO belt, but all the sanctioning bodies are given room for Usyk to fight Fury for a unification fight, and then they'll split it all up like they usually do with the mandatories. But Zhang says he'll fight Anthony Joshua. Now, this fight allegedly was going to take place earlier in both of their careers, and it never materialized. And this was something that got me thinking because Zhang was saying, "Look, rumors has it that Eddie Hearn is talking about a potential fight between Zhang and Anthony Joshua. They've talked about it in the past. As a matter of fact, Zhang was in under the blanket of Eddie Hearn for a little while, and they talked about having that fight, and never materialized. Well, now the rumors again, and Zhang just said, "Look, send me a contract, and I'll sign it, and we'll make this fight happen." And it got me thinking because there's a lot of fights that Eddie Hearn says that are going to happen, and then they don't happen. Is this his MO? Is it becoming his MO? I don't know. I like Eddie Hearn, and I think he's good for the sport. But Zhang might have something there. So Charlo Brothers, right? Jamal Charlo. We all know Jermell Charlo. I do give him credit for stepping up 2 weight classes and fighting Canelo. I didn't give him a chance in hell. And then watching the fight, apparently he didn't think he had a chance in hell either because he didn't even fight. And they had the balls to make that a pay-per-view. But Jamal, who is fighting, Jose Benavidez I think he's putting his WBC middleweight title on the line. I mean, he's had it for he hasn't fought in more than 2 years, and the WBC still let him keep his title. And he's talking about destroying Jose Benavidez Jr. and then wanting to move up and take on David Benavidez. Did you ever see such frauds in boxing as the Charlo brothers? I haven't. These two guys, I mean, the shtick that they have is that they're twins. And, I loved Canelo when he said, "I don't care which one I'm fighting. They both look the same. Put either one of them in there and I'll kick the shit out of them." And he did. But, the Charlo brothers are, to me, the best example of Al Heyman and the PBC. These are guys that are garbage. Okay. The Charlo brothers are garbage. I got into a conversation with somebody. I think it was my man Augie from Riverhead, Long Island. Give Augie a shout out and his son who watched the show. And I talk to Augie frequently one-on-one. He calls me and we chat. And this is a guy that's devastated with what's happening with the sport of boxing and the fact that it's just not around anymore the way it used to be. And I think he thought that one of the Charlo brothers was good. I don't. They didn't fight anybody. Yes, they come and they're in shape, but they're punks to me. They're total punks. I believe one of them talked some smack to what fighter was it in Madison Square Garden? They passed each other in the hallway downstairs leading up to a fight. Daniel Jacobs, I believe it was Daniel Jacobs, and somebody was one of the Charlo brothers was probably Jamal because he's the middleweight, and talked a little smack to Daniel Jacobs, and Daniel Jacobs got in his face. It was like, dude, let's go. Let's sign the contract. And Charlo backed right down. And the reason he backed right down is because he's garbage. He's a scam. He's a built up. He's like the old time fighters. You know what he reminds me of? People that are old enough to remember watching the Brady Bunch. Yeah, I'm that old. There was an episode where they took the oldest brother, whatever, Greg, and he fit the suit, so they signed him to this big record contract, and he thought who he was, right? But the truth of the matter is he fit the suit that they had, and they changed everything around. And well, that's the Charlo Brothers, in my opinion. Yeah, they fit the bill. They're in shape. You got to give them credit; they're always in shape. But man, do they talk smack, and they just don't back it up. That's the thing that's synonymous with the PBC fighters and anybody under Al Heyman. They all talk shit, and none of them back it up. I can't stand it. But anyway. So Oscar De La Hoya, I was wondering about Oscar De La Hoya, and he went public this past week, saying to the PBC fighters, speaking of the PBC, come on, let's make some good fights happen. You could say what you want about Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, but I give Oscar a lot of credit as a fighter, even though he had his demons. Even though one of them was fishnet stockings. But I mean, look, Oscar De La Hoya was the golden boy when he was a boxer, and he fought everybody. Nobody can, listen. Now you look back at Oscar De La Hoya's career, and nobody could say that he didn't fight everybody, because he did. And you could also make the argument that he beat Floyd Mayweather. It was his own corner that lost that fight. If Floyd actually won it, I mean, on paper he obviously won it, but you could say, oh no, Oscar won the fight. I've never heard. Well, I heard it one other time, and that guy lost too. A corner saying, "Oh, you won the fight. Coast, take it easy. Don't do anything stupid." You never do that in the sport of boxing, especially with the way the judges are. I mean, they're like Mr. Magoo. Remember Mr. Magoo? Well, you probably don't, but he couldn't see. But anyway, he's saying, "Hey, for all the PBC fighters out there, let's make some good fights." And I give him credit. De La Hoya has been vocal about Al Heyman and the fact that Al Heyman doesn't let his fighters, his PBC fighters, fight other fighters under promotional contracts. Very rarely do they, and I think it hurt the sport. People, when the PBC hit the scene, it was a bait and switch. I called it back then. Go back and watch some of the shows. Al Heyman was, free boxing. Remember, it was on Fox. It was on CBS, I believe. There was a fight, and it was like, oh yeah, we're bringing it back. And he tried to build up some of the fighters, and he did. Got some fans following him. Next thing you know, they're all pay-per-view. Now his golden child, Showtime, and to tell you the truth, look, for the sport of boxing, I'm kind of bummed that Showtime's leaving the sport of boxing, but for boxing, I'm glad, because Mario Ronaldo was the worst play-by-play guy or blow-by-blow guy in the sport. He ruined the broadcast. I couldn't watch the broadcast when he was on. I would mute it. Poor Al Bernstein, who's one of the greatest boxing commentators this sport has ever seen. And what a great guy if you've never met him personally. I mean, we got stuck one time at the International Boxing Hall of Fame in a car that got lost trying to find a hotel. But he's a great guy, and every time I watch him on this broadcast, he would never say it because he's such a company guy, but man, I could see his blood curdle. I don't know how he does it. And then Abner Mares, I mean, I don't know. Listen, it's a good thing that Showtime's leaving boxing just so we can get rid of Ronaldo. I mean, what a clown he was. He was a, I had heard that he came from the WWE, and that fits him. And he kind of took that and was making that into boxing, which I thought was crazy. Now, speaking of networks, Well, just to close out on the PBC, Al Heyman, the mystery man, he's reportedly trying to get some deals with Amazon Prime Video and DAZN. It'd be interesting to see, because DAZN, um, when they burst out onto the scene, I thought that they were going to be the future of boxing. It seems like Eddie Hearn kind of snuggled up and jumped in bed with them. But it would be interesting to see if the zone starts, offering their streaming service to any promoter and not lock up with one, because like I mentioned earlier, ESPN has seemingly jumped into bed with Top Rank, and you don't really see anybody else. The only other promoter that has kind of been on multiple platforms was Oscar De La Hoya. So I'm hoping good things for Oscar and B Hop. I got a picture right here in my office/studio of me and B Hop in Vegas at one of those at a Canelo fight. I believe it was the Canelo Kovalev fight, and we had a good time. If you've never watched that show live from Las Vegas, we did several of them. You should check them out. They're real good. The interviews with Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya and Ryan Garcia were all good. There was a bunch of other people too, so check it out. Kathy Duva, my girl, I love Kathy Duva. She we had her on too. So anyway, speaking of networks, there's a rumor going around that Netflix. And I want to give a shout out to my man Coach, who actually turned me on to this article that I didn't see anywhere else this morning. And kudos to Coach. I'm up every day by 3 a.m. I don't sleep that well anymore. But I am in bed early. But the funny thing is that he turned me on to this article that I read, and I got a comment. I just saw this by my man Kevin in the chat room. He says, "Hey, basically saying to me, be careful, because when you start criticizing Al Heyman in the PBC, next thing you know, they're going to bring the race card in. They're going to call me racist," which is so true, man. I'll never forget. One of the reasons I stopped doing this show was I had gotten an email from somebody because I was talking shit about Floyd Mayweather and how he, we all know cherry picked his way, and I basically flat out, I just never was a fan of Floyd Mayweather. To me, I personally think that he ruined this sport because, and when I say that, I mean because he was so successful. I'm not taking any of his success away, but because of his success, now a lot of young fighters try to emulate it, and the end result is what we see. Nobody wants to fight anybody; they just want a title. Well, I got this email, and the guy was calling me a racist just because I didn't like Floyd Mayweather. And I'm saying to myself, how ridiculous is that? If you want to call me a racist because I don't like any black fighter, then that's justifiable, right? But you can't say that. All my favorite fighters, most of them, I mean, Jack Dempsey and Rocky Marciano, they weren't black fighters, but all my other favorites, Sonny Liston, my favorite, Mike Tyson. I wrote a book about a freed slave and the justice, the injustice that was done to him, and how I am trying to fight for the justice. And this guy had the balls to say I was racist just because I don't like Floyd Mayweather. It's kind of funny, but shout out to my man Kevin because he hit it on the head. But anyway, Netflix is rumored to be wanting to get into broadcasting boxing, live boxing events. Now, when Netflix hit the scene several years back, we reached out and tried to get this show on Netflix, and they said, no, we're never going to get into sports because of the logistics of bringing a live sporting event. Well, now I guess the logistics are easier for them, and they want it. Now, you would think that the guy that you would want to jump into bed with as far as a fighter in the sport of boxing, if you're going to be new onto the scene of broadcasting fights, would be Canelo Alvarez, right? I mean, Canelo Alvarez is the big draw, right? No. They're talking about, and this not only saddens me, it makes me sick. They're talking about Jake Paul. And now Jake Paul is being referred to as the YouTube professional boxer, the YouTuber professional boxer. Okay. Now, nobody can argue that Jake Paul brings viewers. He's bringing this new generation of viewers to the sport of boxing, but they're not genuine boxing fans. And this is what hurts me because I just feel that the sport of boxing, and I talked about this last week, the sport of boxing, is the only sport that I believe that every fan needs to know the history. They don't need to be a historian and be able to have a conversation about, any era of boxing. I mean, I love when I can talk to somebody and start getting into, you know, Jack Johnson and then Jack Dempsey and start talking about all the fighters and you got Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta and just the history of the sport. I mean, I just I love it. I can go on and on and on, and it helps me remember all of the stuff that I've learned when I'm talking to somebody about it. But this generation, the Jake Paul fans, they don't care. They're looking at what they see right now, and that's all that they care about. But at the end of the day, it brings viewers, right? And that's why Netflix. But they did say they would want to go after Canelo as soon as his contract with Paramount Plus is up. So maybe you're going to start seeing some fights on Netflix. And it doesn't surprise me that Amazon Prime would do it. I just hope they don't jump into bed with Al Heyman because, the PBC fighters, because they don't fight other other fighters under different promotional contracts, they just don't have the talent and they don't want to beat each other up. So they'll pull in some slug to fight. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Last week I talked about some big fights that are coming up. There's one next week. Now it's on Thursday, the 16th. Shakur Stevenson against Edwin De Los Santos. I like the fight, and I actually was considering breaking it down a little bit today, but we'll have time next week prior to the fight, so I'll break it down then. We'll give you a fight preview, and then after the show, you can get ready and watch it. It will be on ESPN, and I do think it's going to be a decent fight. Shakur Stevenson. I remember when Larry Hazard used to come on my show every week. He spoke highly of Shakur when he was still in the amateurs. He said on this show, watch out for this kid, and it came true. So we'll see. One last thing I want to mention. I know that we're getting to the end here, but I happen to have noticed a all-time pound for pound rankings that BoxRec put out. And when they first put it out, I said to myself, "Oh my God, this is ridiculous." I mean, what the hell, and we get it, I mean, how BoxRec works with the computerized the guy who beat the guy who beat the guy who beat the guy, and that's correct. I like that. But I think what turned me off about when I saw the top 10 all-time pound for pound, number one was, I agree with 100%, Sugar Ray Robinson. I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson was the best fighter ever to lace on a pair of boxing gloves, and there'll never be another one like him. But their number two, pound for pound, all-time, was Floyd Mayweather, and I freaked out when I saw that, okay? Because I don't even have Floyd Mayweather in my top. He's in my top 25 all-time greats. Okay, only because you got to give credit where credit's due. But I don't have him above Manny Pacquiao, even though he beat Pacquiao. I'm going to answer a question here. They said, why did Larry quit the show? Larry didn't quit the show. He started doing some some commentary for the PBC, and I believe it was a conflict of interest, and he stopped coming on. And yeah, listen, in life, sometimes you got to do what's best for you and your family, and obviously, we weren't in a position to financially reward my man Larry. But listen, Larry and I became good friends, and I miss him, and I can't wait till I see him again, and hopefully I'm going to be seeing him soon. So, but Floyd Mayweather is ranked number 2 on BoxRec's all-time pound for pound, which I just don't understand. Especially when you take the guy who beat the guy who beat the guy mentality. Now, this is where you could put an asterisk with him because he did fight some big names. You don't know how the computer recognizes a big name at the time of the fight. In other words, if Floyd Mayweather stepped in the ring today and he fought, one of these young fighters and he lost, um, does that fighter get the credit for beating Floyd Mayweather, who's ranked number 2 pound for pound all time by BoxRec? Do they get the same power of beating him, even though he's 100 years old now? I don't know how that works with that, but I certainly don't think that he's in the top 10. I'll read you the top 10 that BoxRec has. They have Sugar Ray Robinson, number 1, Floyd Mayweather, which I think is a joke, at number 2, Jimmy McLaren at number 3. That one kind of shocked me. But when you look at his record, because I went and dissected all these records afterwards, and I'm saying to myself, okay, McLaren, I mean, I forgot about all the guys that he fought. Manny Pacquiao at number 4. See, now I would have him above Floyd. I still wouldn't have them up there. But now when you get to number 5, you start getting some of these fighters that deservedly should be in the all-time top 10 pound for pound. Henry Armstrong. I mean, truthfully, he should be up there. Maybe even at number 2. They have Carlos Monzon at number 6. Carlos Monzon was a great fighter. There's no question about Monzon. But pound for pound, do we just look at who they beat? I mean, pound for pound, when they came up with the pound for pound, the theory is exactly what it sounds like. That you keep all your attributes, all your skill set, okay, and any deficiencies that you have, and you take them to the next weight division, whether it's going up or going down. And I'm not so sure Carlos Monzon had as much boxing talent as a Sugar Ray Robinson, or even, and I know people are going to be shocked at what I'm going to say. I'm not even sure, that you could put him in the same conversation with Floyd Mayweather. Don't get me wrong about Floyd Mayweather. I think Floyd Mayweather had all the skill. My hangup with Floyd is I don't believe we've actually got to see the best Floyd because he was so careful at who he fought. He never really tested himself, and that's what I hold against Floyd. That's it. They have Tony Canzonori at number 7, Carlos Ortiz at number 8, Roberto Duran at number 9, and the marvelous one, Marvin Hagler, at number 10. Now, Roberto Duran, when I was younger, I never really cared much for Duran, but the older I got and the more I started appreciating, specific fights and stuff, Roberto Duran started rising in my mind, and I really accepted and appreciated his greatness. As a matter of fact, I was like a lot of other people who looked at Roberto Duran from the Sugar Ray Leonard era on, and that's wrong. Because if you really want to see the true great Roberto Duran, you got to look at him prior to his fights with Sugar Ray Leonard, because Roberto Duran as a lightweight was fantastic. I mean, this guy was, if you've never seen, watch the Kenny Buchanan fight, I mean, if you've never seen him in his prime, and remember something, he was way past his prime when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay, so I think Roberto Duran actually could be higher. Marvin Hagler, I mean, he was just a beast for the middleweight division. And I was talking to a guy recently, Dave, and we were talking about the middleweights, and he brought up oh gosh, now I'm going blank. But I just lost my train of thought. See, that's what happens when you get old. But it'll come to me out of the blue here in a second. But some guys that aren't on the list that should be. Harry Greb, why isn't he there? I mean, why isn't Harry Greb in the all-time pound for pound top 10? I mean, I would substitute him right now for number 2 at Floyd Mayweather, or move Henry Armstrong up to number 2, and maybe have Harry Greb at number 3. Stanley Ketchel, he's another one that's not in the top 10. Stanley Ketchel was a middleweight. We all know the story. He was just shot in the kitchen because he was getting a little something from somebody's wife, and the husband came home and shot him. But what you don't remember, people remember him fighting Jack Johnson, and Jack Johnson getting pissed, and having his Ketchel's tooth in his glove and all that stuff. But he was a middleweight, and he was a young guy. When he was killed, he was in his 20s, early 20s. So you say to yourself, geez, what could he accomplish so much? What could he have done if he lived another 5 years in boxing? I mean, so Stanley Ketchel should be in that list. Rocky Marciano always loved Lou Ambers. Did you ever look into that? Lou Ambers could have possibly have been in this list. Sugar Ray Leonard, I mentioned, guys like that. And another guy that I would put in there, even though the pound for pound list was not ever intended for heavyweights, but Jack Johnson, was a guy that was way ahead of his time. People compare him when you read about the description of how he fought and during his era, and how it was a rough and tumble sport in that time. He was so polished for the early 1900s that when you read the descriptions of his fights and how he was just toying with his opponents, it reminds me defensively of Floyd Mayweather. And a guy that big, and he was big in his day, but he was only 6 foot, I think slightly less than 6'1", and he was considered a monster in his day. I mean, he could be in the pound for pound all time top 10. And then I asked myself, do you think a guy like Canelo or Terrence Crawford will ever be on this list with BoxRec? I think so. I think Canelo deserves credit because he has fought everyone. And Terrence Crawford, I was a Terrence Crawford fan long before people realized how good he was. And on this show, I used to get comments that he was overrated and he wasn't good and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? People forget that Terrence Crawford was brought in on the B side, and he won. He upset. He was upsetting fighters. People didn't think he was that good because he came from Omaha, Nebraska. It's a perfect guy. He's from Nebraska, and he's got an undefeated record. Let's bring him in. And next thing you know, he knocks the snot out of the guy and, kept doing it. And finally, somebody woke up and said, hey, maybe we should put him on the A side. The problem with Terrence Crawford, up until just recently, the guy never really got the money fights that he deserved. And I believe he was with the wrong promoter. Nothing against Top Rank, but excuse me, I think that he was with the wrong promoter. Now he's willing, he's talking about moving up to fight Canelo. People saying, oh, no, Canelo will kill him. You know what? Don't underestimate this guy, Terrence Crawford. And I say that because Terrence Crawford is one of these guys that, he's so respectful and everything. I mean, he's the kind of guy I would love to hang out with. but I wouldn't want to fight him in the ring because there's a light switch on with Terrence Crawford, and he becomes a mean son of a bitch in that ring. And that's an attribute that you don't teach. That's something that it's innate. It's something that you have, and not many fighters have it, and he has it. And when you have that attribute, you're a tough out. And it just seems that when he puts his mind to something, it happens. I mean, I can't remember any fight that he was in trouble. I mean, I could think of it, and I just can't. I mean, his last fight against Errol Spence. I mean, everybody thought Errol Spence was going to beat him. I mean, Errol Spence is too big. Oh, he's too good. I never liked Errol Spence. PBC fighter. There you go. PBC fighter, overrated. Everybody believes the press clippings, including the fighter. And Terrence Crawford, we all saw what he did to him. I predicted exactly what happened in that fight. Go and check it out. I said that it was not going to be a competitive fight, that Terrence Crawford was going to destroy him. I said it. I figured that it would take him, 8 rounds, 9 rounds, but I wasn't expecting him to throw a beat down the way he did, as quickly as he did. But it shows you, who it is. He might have ended Spence's career, and Spence was so much bigger than him, So anyway, in conclusion, with the all-time pound for pound rankings, I do believe Harry Greb definitely has to be there, and I think Stanley Ketchel deserves to be in the mix as well. But anyway, the rest of the list, I don't have a problem with. And somebody here says, not to put Sugar Ray Leonard in the pound for pound. Now, I'm not saying that he's a top 10, but he's definitely an all-time pound for pound. And you know what? The thing about Sugar Ray Leonard that I think that you have to give him credit is he too was a smart fighter. We all know that the Hagler fight and stuff, and he knew when to fight him. But this was a guy that took on all challenges too, Sugar Ray Leonard. And I believe he deserves the credit there. That's for sure. But anyway, listen, I appreciate you joining me tonight, and hopefully you'll come back. Spread the word. We do want to continue doing this thing, and I got a couple of shows lined up for the rest of the year. We do have a special one coming up in December, which I'll talk more about as we get closer. But it's going to be it'll be fun, and we'll take it as it comes. But anyway, thanks for joining us, and until next time, make sure you tune into this show next week, same time, same channel, and it's also the same bat time and same bat channel. I forgot about that. But until then, ciao, baby.